What's up, Support Fibro friends? Hello to all our fibromyalgia community out there. We are back. It's Friday. Have 2 days left of the conference. So thank you so much for tuning in to our lovely conference. Hello, come on in, chat with us this morning. We have a full day ahead of us, and we already have people coming in. I know, bring in some snacks, water, stretch a little bit, get ready for a lot of great content. Hello, Cassandra. Welcome. Karen, good morning. It's so good to see you. Sonia, so good to see you again. I know we have a lot going on for today, so please like and share this broadcast. We'll be getting started shortly. We have Casey in the backstage, and Dr. Saleeby is here as well, so we can't wait to present. The Support Fibromyalgia Network is a nonprofit organization focused on patient education, medical education, research expansion, advocacy training, and the creation of collaborative care, which includes group health coaching for fibromyalgia. I am Melissa Talwar. I am the executive director of the Support Fibromyalgia Network, and I'm also a board-certified functional medicine health coach. My awesome co-host, Danielle, you're here with us today. Why don't you give a shout out to everybody out there and let us know where you're streaming from?
Hey, I'm Danielle Patilli. I am a patient advocate, fibro warrior, and I am just so happy to be here co-hosting with you.
I know, we're making it through. This is so cool. We have a lot to do today. It's going to be a long day. Good morning, Lois. It's so good to see you. This is going to be relevant to learning for what you go through. And I just want to let you know that you have support. We're going to hear from Casey too, as a support group leader. This might be a good tool and resource for you out there. So we have a lot to share today. And I know Fibro Nerds in the house, this is what I've been sharing with people and the presenters, is we have a very talented group that's very interested in science. So without delay, I'm going to bring on our guest shortly. Let's do our usual introduction here. Let me pull this up. I'm getting behind on everything, everyone. So brain fog is real today, but we'll get going as we pick up more caffeine.
It's very early for you, so.
Yes, it's 7:30 a.m. So I know our Pacific timers over here. It is early. So if you're joining, I know everybody's in different time zones. So let's get the introduction started. Okay, we're going to welcome Casey from the U.S. Pain Foundation next. If you had a chance to watch the live stream over at YouTube, we presented Pediatric Pain video. So thank you to Casey for setting that up with Dr. Anka. It's already available for you to watch at any point in time. I really recommend it. It's something that's near and dear to our hearts at Support Fibro, is supporting pediatric pain and creating avenues of safe spaces for those living in pain in the youth sector. So the mission of the U.S. Pain Foundation is to empower, educate, connect, and advocate for people living with chronic pain conditions. An organization created by people with pain for people with pain. U.S. Pain Foundation recognizes and validates the challenges more than 51.6 million Americans endure every day. They strive to be the leading source of support for those living with pain, as well as their caregivers and care providers. U.S. Pain is here to offer validation, information, support, and above all, hope. So we're thrilled to be able to bring Casey to the stage to join us today. Casey, I'm going to bring you up onto this stage, and we're going to dive into some live Q&A and learn about the programs that they offer. Hi, Casey.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me and letting us be a part of this amazing conference. And you have way too much energy for it being 7:30 in the morning, your time. I'm just going to speak for all of us on the call to say we appreciate it, but you make the rest of all of us look a little bad here.
Yeah.
I need more coffee, to be honest, but it's good to be able to host conferences. And I know that you feel the same way being at U.S. Pain Foundation. We really want to help people, and we want to spread this message of hope, spread the education that we can improve our quality of life, even if we're living with chronic pain conditions.
So true. One of the biggest missions for the US Pain Foundation is really to make sure that every person out there living with any type of chronic pain condition knows that they are supported and that they're not alone on their pain journey, and that there is hope that is out there. There is constantly things changing in the science world for all of us. And we want to make sure that individuals are getting all the up-to-date education information, as well as the support to know that, like I said, they're not alone, and that we hear them and we're here for them.
Exactly. And we appreciate all that you do at US Pain Foundation. That's why we wanted to bring you in. I know it's difficult sometimes on your end to brag about your services, but we're going to brag for you, because I know the tie in for the pediatric pain space, or just pediatrics in general, this has come up as a theme throughout the conference, is creating spaces for the youth, which is something I know that you lead. And again, thank you for providing that video from Dr. Anka on talking about pediatric medicine. It sounds like we need some more pediatric medical doctors too to get involved. But that was tremendous of you to have that interview. And she shared so much of what parents and families can do together to increase support.
No, absolutely. And the pediatric program started with my son and I, and my son is not living with any chronic pain conditions, but he met children that were living with some of the same conditions that I am, and he realized that there's nothing out there for them. And he was at 12 years old, he decided he needed to make a difference for them. And hence we have the Pediatric Pain Warrior program now. And it is growing leaps and bounds because there is such a need for it out there in the community. And if we can help children and their families at a young age, we're only going to set them up for a greater success on their pain journey throughout life, and teaching them how to live with their chronic pain and their pain conditions, instead of living in it and not having that hope that's around.
Well, this is something that is special to us here at Support Fibro. I know Danielle is the perfect co-host for this too, because both of us started with our chronic conditions earlier in our age. So it would have been meaningful.
Yeah.
We both talked about it yesterday. We're like, we wish something was available like this for us, because we were so isolated, or stigmatized in school, and people thought we were strange because of our behavior, that it was just a lot to carry in our younger age. So this program it just makes me emotional talking about it for you, because you see the families that get involved, and I love how it got started and how you've continued to do it, and how more people, like, I guess, let me show a picture, because I want people to visualize the smiling faces. And I'm biased because I got to share. I'm going to share the picture that I'm in for everybody here. But this was 2019, right? We were there in San Antonio together,
Correct.
and we were having a lot of fun. Again, I got really emotional because you see everybody speaking to each other. They were sharing their experiences in school, but articulating it very well. I was so impressed. They were doing better than most of us as adults.
Right? It is. So that picture right there was in 2019, where we held our second retreat at Morgan's Wonderland Water Park, which is a fully accessible water park in San Antonio. And it was for one of our weekend long retreats. We were honored to have Melissa come and join us for the retreat. So it was great to have you there for that one. And that retreat, and I think you're going to show the summer camp photo as well. And that's the summer camp photo from this past June. This was our second year. We have a 5-day, 4-night summer camp. And it's for the entire family, because it is more than just the pain warrior that is affected. It is the siblings, it is the parents and the caregivers. And so it's really about working on the entire family and bringing them together. And so that, as well as in San Antonio, and that's at Morgan's Wonderland Summer Camp, which is an ultra accessible facility. And we had just under 200 people there, 50 families that attended the camp. And we had kids that met other kids for the first time, and we're able to just be a kid. There's the rock wall, but it's ultra accessible. So even if you're in a wheelchair, you can get up on the rock wall. We had people riding bikes for the first time. Don't quote me on this, but I think they had 22 different adaptive bikes there. So it didn't matter what your ability was, you could ride a bike for the first time. There is a lazy river, there is a ropes course, and again, it's all ultra accessible. So any type of disability is able to actually partake in all of these events. And the most important piece of this, and I'm going to assume that Melissa and Danielle, you would agree with me, is the connection that is made. When you're finally able to just kind of let your guard down, you're in an extremely safe environment with individuals who truly understand what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're feeling. And if you can do something, in the morning, but then you have to take the afternoon off and then you're back in the evening because you've rested, like nobody questions it, right? It's like, okay, we'll see you when you come back. And it's nobody questions if you're using a wheelchair this morning and then you're walking a little in the afternoon, and everybody on there is quote unquote, what we hear is, I feel normal. And I mean, it breaks my heart that that's the way that we have to feel. Like, we feel like we're not normal during these other times, but I'm so thankful that we are able to offer this, so that these individuals have that opportunity. And like this summer, we had a couple families that met, and then they always had like their family vacations and things like that planned for the rest of the summer. And the kids told their parents that you need to cancel our yearly family vacation because we're changing that, and we're just going to go and visit and stay the week with our new friends. And that's what it's about. We is just really building that community for these families.
Wow, I'm absolutely mind blown that this exists. Like Melissa said, I wish I, could have experienced this, because this is something that definitely would have helped. And like you're saying, it definitely is helping all of these people. And I was going to ask, and you answered, if you include the parents and the siblings, because a lot of people don't think about that. Like, I have a brother, and just like learning now, like as an adult, that he has been affected by my life. Like, I was born with a disability, and so he's been affected my whole life. And so being able to include them as siblings and be like, no, like, you're part of this journey too. I think that's, important.
They're a big part of it. And we hear from the siblings that they're like, well, I finally feel heard, or I finally feel validated. And they feel like they're in a safe environment because they might only know their sibling who's dealing with chronic pain. And so they don't realize that there's this whole other community that's out there. And so they see, the parents maybe spending a lot of time with the pain warrior, right? Going to different procedures and to doctor's offices. And depending on the age of the sibling, they don't understand that that's not fun times, right? They just see it as, well, mom and dad are always with Billy Bob, and they're not with me. Like, I'm stuck with grandma, or I'm stuck with, going over to the neighbor's house, or whatever the case may be. And they don't associate that. And so they are able to then speak about it, with other siblings who get it. And then they're also able to understand what is really happening, uh, in that time frame, right? It's such a big part of it. And for parents to realize, listen, you're not alone on this pain. I know you might feel like you guys are on this island out there, wherever you may live, that you may feel like you guys are on this island out there by yourself, but there is support, and there are people claim, and Melissa, I think you were at the one where everyone was like, oh my God, I finally found my tribe. And that was the theme. They were like, we finally found like our tribe and our individuals who can help us through this. And so when you're having that bad day, or things are just, you're just questioning everything, you have somebody else that you can lean on, and you don't have to wear the weight of the world on your shoulders.
I know. I want to ask if the adults, is there a camp for adults so we can like
Yeah.
rekindle those of us that have grown up with all
Yeah.
the chronic illness conditions? But it was such a terrific experience, and that's why I definitely wanted to bring you on to share and let other families know, because we get families asking questions. It feels so isolating, and what programs they can actually go and enjoy. So I always share about the work that you're doing and tell them. They're like, really, this exists? Like, how do I do this? So I know, how many times a year do you open up these camps?
Great question. So the camp, and just so everybody knows, all programs that we will be discussing today with the US Pain Foundation, we offer all of our programs free of charge. So there is not the financial burden that is, that we don't want that to ever be the reason that somebody cannot attend either the camp or these educational days that we're going to talk about, any of those types of things. We just want people to realize that all of those programs are free of charge. The camp at this moment is only once a year, and it is in the last week of June. We will be opening up registration for it sometime in January. So be on the lookout for that. And that will all be on our website and on social media. We will make sure to get you guys the links for registration, so you guys would be able to get it out to your families, so that you guys can share in that experience. And as I stated, it is for the entire family. We understand that not all the time, like the entire family can't come for that, 5 days, 4 nights. So maybe it's only, the mom and the sister who come with the pain warrior because the dad can't take off work again, or things of that nature. And we've had dads that bring the kids down as well. So we've had all different types of the family dynamics that are there, but the registration will open sometime in January.
And where is it located?
Yeah, so it is in San Antonio. It's at the Morgan's Wonderland Summer Camp. And if you look it up, it's Morgan's Wonderland Summer Camp. It is absolutely phenomenal. The video that you'll see on there is from our camp in particular, is on their website. But it is their summer camp, and which is ultra accessible, which means it goes above the ADA compliance of just being handicap accessible. It takes a step above that to make it even more accessible for everybody.
So for the people that can't, I guess adults,
Yeah.
that can't come to the camp,
Yeah.
What resources do you have? I guess like support groups. I know you have things like that. Like, what can we do to support you? To make this accessible.
Absolutely. So there's several different things. I mean, so even at the summer camp, just so you guys know, and I'll touch base on this, and then I'll get to your question, is we do offer support groups every day, even at the summer camp. The support groups are peer led, and that's how US Pain is as a whole. All of our support groups are peer led support groups. But we do one for the caregivers, we do one for siblings, and then we do one for the pain warriors. So everybody has their own space as well. At US Pain Foundation as a whole, we do have the peer-led support groups. We have just over 60 that meet every month. So there's one that meets every single day of the week. And all of those are virtual. So there is definitely that piece of the puzzle. So that from that side of things, from the peer-led support groups. But as far as the other adults who are here that are like, oh my gosh, we want to get involved with this program, we want to do different things, really word of mouth, making sure that all the families know that this program exists. The other thing we do is we put together these amazing swag bags for these families when they get there, that have different products in it, different activities, things like that. And am always open to, if you guys are like, oh my gosh, we would love to include this in those swag bags, or can we try and do this? And the collaborations that are out there is what's huge and what really makes a difference, because I can't know every single thing that's out there. And if people are like, listen, we really like this product and it's approved for children, whatever that product may be, we want to make sure that it gets in the hands of these individuals, because we want them to leave with all of this knowledge and this information that they're aware. And then new in 2024, sorry, I had to think about what year it was. New in 2024, we're going to be doing community days at local children's hospitals. So we'll be doing roughly 5 to 7 of them, and we will let you guys again know when those are. And so you guys can come, because adults living with chronic pain, doesn't matter what it is, we serve as the inspiration and hope for these children. They need to see that, oh, look, Casey is living with CRPS and with POTS and EDS and all these other conditions, but look at her. She's still able to run this program, and she's still able to live a fulfilling life. And we need to serve as hope and inspiration for these pain warriors, for their families, for their parents, to see, oh, my child's life is not over. There is hope out there. They will still have a fulfilling life here, even living with the chronic pain that they're living in.
That's awesome. You'll definitely have to send us and let us know all of that information.
Absolutely. I will get all of this, as we finalize all of the dates and things, I will get all of that to Melissa, because all of those community days, they'll be just at the local hospital. So they're not going to be limited to number of people, you know what I mean? Anybody would be able to join those. And again, to be able to really serve as that inspiration for some of these kids is what's going to be so important to them.
Absolutely. We'll get all the information out to everyone, even in the description of the video. And what we do post-production is break up the videos too from the conference. So everybody is going to see the videos, get the links, and be able to join the programs. And we'll always share on social media. And there's so much that US Pain Foundation provides the community, that for everybody out there, we had to pick a couple of the topics. So I know I kind of chose for them because there was one with the pediatrics that's huge in my heart, and something we had to share to everybody out there. But you also have the national peer support groups available, which you kind of touched on, but let's dive in a little bit more in this last part of the conversation. I'd love to let people know that there are support groups available.
Absolutely. So our peer-led support group in a group is run through Pain Connection. And it is all, like I said earlier, there is over 60 that meet every month, and some of them are state-based, some of them are specialized groups, some of them are national groups. Some of the specialized groups we have one for LGBTQ plus, we have one for veterans, we have one for a writing, creative writing support group, because some people can feel that is the best way for them to utilize and get their emotions out, or just to name a couple of those. And then we also do have one for pediatrics, so it's 13 to 17-year-olds. And then the national ones and the state ones are also available for everybody. And you can get all of that information to just join them. And again, they're free. So maybe you join it for one day, but then you can't go again for a couple weeks. That's okay. No one is holding you to it, but it just is there as a resource for everybody. And especially during this crazy holiday season that we have coming up on us. I feel like between Thanksgiving and the end of the year, it's just like a blur. And for a lot of us living in chronic pain, it's also a very scary and trying time, because you see so many people going and participating in holiday parties and this and that. And we have to pick and choose. Well, what can we do? What can't we do? And things like that. And so it can also lead to a lot of people, the depression and feeling sorry for themselves. And we really want individuals to know that you're not alone. And so we have these support groups. A national one meets, and they're all meet virtual, but they meet every day. And you can meet other individuals, so you don't feel like you're alone on this pain journey.
And it's important. People need community. And I know we find community in social media like we're doing now, but sometimes social media can be a little bit too much and you need a different aspect of support. So that's why we always encourage people to join some of these support groups and find one that works for them. I love that you have the special groups, you meet on different days and times. So there's so many things that people can join when they like go to the US Pain Foundation's website.
Absolutely. And the other piece of that is in 2024, again, sorry, I should just have it like written on my forehead or something. But in 2024, we will be doing the next support group leader training. So if anybody in your community is like, I would really like to start my own peer-to-peer support group, you go through our training, you have the support of our the Pain Connections, which is a psychologist here for a licensed psychologist who's on staff with us, and you have that ability. And then you also have the support of all of the other support groups leaders through the US Pain Foundation. And that in and of itself is a whole nother community, that they meet once a week if everybody's available. They just kind of get on a call and catch up and talk about things that they have going on, maybe in their support groups and things, but they're really there for each other as well. And that training will take place, I believe, sometime in the first quarter of 2024. So if anybody is interested as well, Melissa, we'll get you guys that information. But again, it would be on our website when all of that opens up.
We'll definitely provide that information to everybody. And we always encourage people to the cross collaboration of chronic conditions, because I know sometimes people ask about specific fibromyalgia groups, but fibromyalgia, you'll find when you've joined the chronic pain groups, there's a lot of people living with fibromyalgia, and you will find some other people with fibromyalgia just as the diagnosis as well. So, and all the overlapping conditions.
It's so true. And then you're also going to find the people that didn't realize that it was fibromyalgia, and you're going to be able to help, them get the diagnosis throughout their pain journey as well, because they're going to be like, that's exactly what I'm feeling. And no one can figure it out, because I think we've all been there. As you mentioned, you guys have been dealing with this since you guys were younger. I have as well. And I went so many years being misdiagnosed or undiagnosed. And so if we can help others get those diagnoses earlier, again, we're just helping them. And that's another piece of all of this, is being able to talk about the real life experiences of what us as the patients are going through.
And I know from experience, just being around people that are, or just being able to talk to someone that has a chronic illness and gets that aspect of it, is so therapeutic.
It is. It's validating, right?
Yes.
You feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not, because at times, even though we know, right, Melissa, how many conferences do we go to that we see people, like, we know that there's so many individuals out there, but it doesn't matter. There is still the times when you're like, I'm the only one that's feeling this or dealing with this, but in reality, we're not. And the minute we can keep proving it to ourselves that we're not, and realizing that we have the support out there, it's only going to help all of us in that process.
Well, and many of us manage things like pain, fatigue, brain fog. We all get symptoms no matter what. I joke that the lupus community has kind of adopted us because there's so much prevalence of fibromyalgia. But when you talk to them, they'll like talk about fatigue from the pain and all the inflammation that comes from it. We understand each other. So that's why it doesn't necessarily mean it like fibromyalgia doesn't have to be a fibromyalgia. We're all relatable to each other, and we can support each other in the community.
Absolutely. And that it's so true that, it's just that underlying understanding of, we get what it's like to live with a chronic condition, a chronic illness, that we understand that. And it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is. We just get what the other person is going through.
Well, I appreciate your time today. I know that you are super busy. You're very active, and this was just a small segment of what the organization does. We look forward to sharing more of your content in 2024. I know there's a lot of upcoming, so we'll stay posted and we'll share the resources too through our fibromyalgia community. And we love being a part of supporting pain overall in the work that we do. So thank you, Casey, for joining us today.
Thank
you
you
so much.
guys. Thank you, both of you, for having me, and to the whole fibro community. Please know you're not alone. We are here to help and to support you, from the family aspect and from the adult aspect. For everybody, we are here for you. But thank you guys for all you're doing. And this conference is no small task. So thank you, because education leads to empowerment, and that is what is just so imperative for all of us. And so kudos to you guys for putting this on, and thank you for allowing me and the US Pain Foundation to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for being here with all the resources. And again, this was just a small highlight of all the work you do, because there's education resources that I see all the time on the Zoom, and all the things that resources you provided with cannabis recently.
Yes.
So there's so much content that you have available. There's pain toolkits. So we'll have to make a list and summarize in a blog for everyone to watch. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, and good luck with the last 2 days of the conference. You're almost
Thank
there.
you.
You're almost at the finish line, but congratulations to you guys, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank
so
you.
much.
We'll move you backstage and we'll have Dr. Saleeby join us shortly. Bye. Okay, what a great conversation. And
Oh,
again,
yeah.
for everybody out there, I mean, I just get jazzed knowing that there's resources for the youth available too, and just all of these wonderful resources for anyone managing pain conditions to come in and lean into that. Please know that you're not alone, and these resources are readily available for you. And all this education, there's a lot of education that we can find. And I even noticed, Danielle, when Michelle mentioned, I'm blanking on the actual method of the name, but looking last night, it came up in my YouTube feed. So they actually did a live demo of that method. It starts with an F, and I don't want to butcher the name, but there's a video from the US Pain Foundation where they have a speaker actually doing a live demo for people in that method. And they have some of the themes that have come up in this conference, they actually have addressed in videos. So this is why the education is so important for patient empowerment. We'll get you the information, and we'll talk about filling in the gaps for helping, having conversations with medical providers, because we have learned that there are medical providers interested in working with fibromyalgia patients. We will get there. And I know Dr. Saleeby is he's over here in the stage backstage right now. Hello. Okay, we'll bring you up. Are you ready? Give me a thumbs up backstage. I can see you. Okay, fantastic. Let's add you in. Hello, welcome to the Fibromyalgia Community Conference.
Hello, glad to be here.
I am thrilled, and it is an honor to have you here. I was excited when you confirmed, and shout out to Linda for connecting us, not only with about LDN and these conversations, but I've seen you speak on long COVID, chronic Lyme conditions, autoimmune conditions. So we love your interviews, and we've been following and listening before the conference too.
Yeah.
Good, great.
So it's great to have you here. Where are you streaming in from for everybody out there?
Well, we're coming live from Charleston, South Carolina.
We got the Carolinas over here.
Carolinas represent. And we're missing Brandy, but she's actually in Somerville. So she wanted to be here for this interview. So we'll all get connected, especially when I visit, because there's a trip planned for the Carolinas. So we'll have to coordinate.
Well, Somerville is just up the road about an hour. So
yes, that's why she was bummed that she couldn't make it for this interview. But we're thrilled to have you here. We're going to let you present. I took a peek, and so I am nerding out, and I'll try not to get my voice an extra octave here with excitement, because you're part of the Fibro Nerd crew here, and we love our sciences. So we're going to bring up your presentation and add it to the stage. And then what's going to happen is we'll let you have the stage to present. Myself and Danielle will move backstage, but we're here if you need anything, and we'll let you get started.
Okay. And I just advanced by just clicking on my computer to advance the slides, or?
Yeah, let's just test it once just to make sure before we leave. There we go.
Perfect. Yeah. Wonderful. Great. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'll be back after for a live Q&A. So everybody out there in the chat, please enjoy. I know some people have showed up because they heard about you before. So we'll let the chat move and we'll let you get started.
Okay, wonderful. So for those that don't know me or are not familiar, I am a functional medicine physician practicing in South Carolina. I have 2 offices, one near Myrtle Beach and one near Charleston. And that's home is Charleston, actually. So it is Carolina Holistic Medicine. The practice started in 2013, so we're celebrating our 10-year anniversary. Prior to that, my first career in medicine was in the emergency room. So it was a very traditional allopathic ER career that spanned almost 20 years. During that time, it was the late 90s, I knew there was something better that we could be doing for our patients. Not so much the lacerations and gunshot wounds. We kind of got that down pretty good in allopathic medicine, but it was the chronic care, diabetes, hypertension, congestive heart failure, strokes, heart attacks, those kind of things that I was not happy with as far as my medical school and residency training fell very short. So I developed a curriculum in the late 90s that took me around all over the country to different conferences. And hence I became an integrative, holistic, and what we now call functional medicine. Although what I practice is what I refer to as reformed functional medicine. I'm also a big prescriber of low-dose naltrexone. I know Linda Elzegood, the director and founder of that organization. It's a nonprofit organization located in the United Kingdom, but has an international presence. And Linda is a wonderful person, and she got me in touch with the group here to present. But I'm on their medical advisory board, and I'm one of their routine lecturers and writers. I did contribute a chapter to the 3rd LDN book, and we'll talk about that in a bit. I also am an affiliate and official advisor with the FLCCC. That's the Frontline COVID Critical Care Alliance. And they're the group, amongst a couple, very few others, that came out with early treatment options for COVID-19 during the pandemic. And now there are vanguards of information, truthful information about early treatment, the medications that have been rolled out by pharma, and also the vaccines. I'm affiliated with all those. What I'm going to do is basically talk about some novel treatments, including low-dose naltrexone, cannabinoids, CBD, if you will, peptides, healing peptides, rapamycin, amloxanox, and I'll make mention of methylene blue as well. So fibromyalgia, by definition, I probably don't have to define it for this group, but there's a lot of overlap, the same kind of overlap that we see when I deal with Lyme patients, people with mycotoxin illness, people with heavy metals, people with EMF sensitivity, food allergies, leaky gut, chronic inflammatory response syndrome, or CIRRUS, as well as MSIDS, multi-system infectious disease syndrome. These are all fancy words for sometimes the same thing. We also see overlap with things like MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, POTS, EDS, and a few others. So if you develop a Venn diagram sets, you'll notice there's a lot of commonality in other words, under the same 3 circles, if you will, of common things. And that's what we see also with fibromyalgia and ME/CFS, chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalomyopathies. There is some overlap, but there are differences. So the overlapping symptoms are pain, fatigue, brain fog or cognitive dysfunction, sleep disturbances, hormonal dysfunctions, things like that, immune dysfunction. And a lot of times they coexist to a large degree that it's very difficult to sometimes separate them out. I have folks coming to see me with long COVID, and they have underlying Lyme that we discover for them. And it's sometimes difficult to determine what's giving them the big problem. Is it the Lyme, or is it the COVID, or the vaccine injury? So the differences between fibromyalgia and CFS is that there's something called substance P, which is increased in the cerebral spinal fluid of patients. In some studies they've done, they extract some through a spinal tap or lumbar puncture, and it's present there where it's not present in people with CFS. So that is one thing to discriminate one from the other. Also, if you look at the RK criteria for sleep, it's a sleep criteria. If you look at the very basic criteria, there's no difference between fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue syndrome. However, if you use more advanced analysis of sleep patterns, it's actually the transitional patterns of sleep, going from light sleep to heavy, to the different stages in REM sleep. There are differences between those two populations. And this is outlined in a couple of clinical trials that I have put at the bottom of my slides. So just a disclaimer about that. Not everything that's in the peer-reviewed literature is good stuff. There's a lot of crap that's published, a lot of falsifications we've noticed in recent years. And one other disclaimer, I would hope that people use this as informational only, and not to use it as my establishing a patient-doctor relationship. That's not what this is about. This is educational purposes only. And please, if you want to start something, make sure you go to a qualified practitioner, licensed practitioner, to help you along the way. I just want to put that disclaimer out there. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. So theories on causes. So viral and non-viral infections. You have things like a virus can cause a mediated deficit in T-cell activation. Things like Epstein-Barr, CMV, HHV6. And now to that list, we can add the SARS-CoV-2 and other viruses and illnesses. Viral injury apparently gets in the way of cellular calcium channels, and thus neuroendocrine dysregulation and serotonin deficiency. You get the disruption of the HPA axis, which knocks out a lot of the things like adrenal function, thyroid function, gonadal function. So all the hormones associated with those glands in the HPA axis can be disrupted, as well as the sympathetic nervous system. You see folks with low growth hormone levels, and we don't really measure growth hormone specifically because it fluctuates. You get spikes and troughs throughout the day, many, many times. It's better to measure IGF-1, which is growth hormone, gets sort of converted into that, if you will, in the liver, and it's a more stable thing to measure. So IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, as well as insulin-like growth factor binding protein 3. So you have a decrease in IGF-1 and sometimes an increase in IGF-BP3, and a corresponding rise in cortisol, one of the stress hormones, and then a drop in your norepinephrine production. There are some genetic defects that have been implicated, SERPs beta and alpha genes, and they actually code for a thyroid hormone receptor. So you get low affinity for thyroid hormone receptors, yielding a functional hypothyroidism. When I say functional hypothyroidism, that means that the lab test may be normal, a normal in-range TSH, and a T4, a T3, reverse T3 might all be normal, but the person presents with hypothyroidism. It is common that family medicine, internal medicine, and even Indro will only measure TSH and T4. That's what insurance pays for. However, that's not sufficient. If you listen to any of my thyroid lectures, you know that you need to check free T3, T3, T4, reverse T3, amongst other things. Iodine, selenium levels, iron, magnesium. So those can all be affected by some genetics and make one predisposed to have low thyroid function, even at the receptor level, not only at the production end. So tick-borne illnesses, that's another non-viral illness, although there are some viruses transmitted by the tick bite. Up to 18 things can be transmitted by a single tick bite. But we're talking about Borrelia burgdorferi, or BB, Babesia, which might be the second runner-up co-infection, and Bartonella, which can cause a lot of mood disorder and behavioral problems. Heavy metals, especially mercury, can be an agent that causes fibromyalgia. And then a reduction in your RBC tagged or erythrocyte magnesium levels, an increase in homocysteine. Homocysteine by itself is an inflammatory marker, and we sometimes see some inflammatory markers rise, like myeloperoxidase, interleukin-6, fibrinogen, and some others. But in this case, homocysteine, made up of two amino acids, cysteine and methionine, if they cannot be degraded or broken apart, they sort of build up and they can cause all kinds of trouble. They're an indicator of how well the methylation pathway is doing. That's your detox pathways. And then you've probably heard of the MTHFR gene. So the MTHFR, along with MTR, CBS, and a few others, will code for proteins involved in the activation of inactive folate, or like folic acid, to methylfolate, and part of the methylation pathway, important in the Krebs cycle, important in ATP production. And we see folks with fibromyalgia that have low ATP, low energy, or fatigue. So measuring homocysteine and then treating it appropriately to lower it if it's elevated. Typically, if it's over the level of 9, we'll want to address that. Also checking things like vitamin D and folate and B12 and B6 levels, all very good. And even you will see an abnormal cellular carnitine metabolism that has been implicated in fibromyalgia. So I'm going to jump from that into treatment and interventions. So LDN, or low-dose naltrexone, is on the top of the list. It is one that agent, it's a synthetic drug, was created in the early 1960s, mostly used back then for addiction, opioid addiction, later alcoholism. Food addiction now is one of the newer FDA approvals. However, it was during the 70s and 80s when they were writing this drug for folks that were heroin addicts or opioid addicts, people with HIV that were hooked on intravenous opioids, that they noticed, especially amongst the HIV/AIDS population, that their AIDS was becoming better controlled. And it was Dr. Banhari in New York who first realized that in this country. And then the European doctors noticed it in the 70s and 80s while writing this drug in high doses, 50 to 300 milligrams a day, that a lower dose, i.e. something around 1 milligram to even half a milligram, all the way up to about 4.5, 5 milligrams per day, did something quite different. Wasn't really used in those low doses for addiction, but it helped with autoimmune and immune dysregulation. And so hence the term low-dose naltrexone. There's VLDN, very low-dose naltrexone, and ULDN, ultra-low-dose naltrexone. An organization was created a couple of decades ago. Actually, there are two non-profit organizations. One is the LDNresearchtrust.org, which I'm affiliated with. The other one is the LDNscience.org, another one in Europe. And they publish a lot of material on their websites, reference material. Everything's backed by science here, not just conjecture or wishful thinking. So there, Dr. Younger and Dr. Brune are referenced here, where they've studied LDN for fibromyalgia pain and some of the other symptoms. Okay, and LDN is used for a lot of different things. There have been 3 books written, the LDN book, volume 1, 2, and 3. The third one just came out last December, about a year ago. And I did a chapter on longevity, but there are chapters on how it's used in thyroid dysfunction, in cancer, in chronic pain states. So very interesting stuff. And as a standalone, that's my first go-to with someone with chronic illness, not limited to fibromyalgia, but including. Now, cannabinoids or CBD, well, there's CBG, CBN, CBS. There's all kinds of cannabinoids, probably over 100 different cannabinoids that we know about. More have been researched than others. And they are also things like Delta 8 and Delta 9, THC, or even hemp, full spectrum cannabinoids or very specific ones. And they are very helpful with pain, with depression, anxiety disorder, with insomnia, all of those things that you see in fibromyalgia patients. It's well researched, and the use of cannabinoids for controlling pain in fibromyalgia is pretty widespread. A lot of people can get these agents over the counter, so a lot of them are self-prescribing without the need for a clinician's involvement. But it's always best to, you don't want to be picking up your cannabinoids at the gas station or the 7-Eleven. You want to make sure that it's pharmaceutical grade, very clean, well processed. Make sure it's in the proper carrier oils. We have 2 companies we use routinely, and one uses hemp oil as the carrier protein for their, carrier oil for their cannabinoids. And it's very helpful when it's paired up with naltrexone. So the use of LDN and cannabinoids is much more effective. I use that combination in a lot of my patients, and there's timing involved. There was a study published in some cancer survivors, and this is related to the use of LDN, which is anti-cancer, and cannabinoids, which is anti-cancer, paired up on cancer survivors to look at recurrence rates. And it turns out there were 4 different cohorts. The cohort that did the best was the one that had the LDN first. Then there was several hours gap between the taking of the CBD. And it turned out that those patients in that cohort had a far lower recurrence rate of cancer, a reduction of something like 22%, where the next one was something like 18%. So there's some references there too. Again, there are caveats with cannabinoids and Delta 8 and things like that. And I have my favorite 2 companies that I'll identify at the end of this program. All right, healing peptides. Oh, let's make sure I didn't. Yep, healing peptides. So story on peptides is they've been researched for over 30 years, starting in the former Soviet Union. They're very safe. We make them ourselves. You can't overdose on them. They are very, very helpful, and they get pulsed. You don't take this like a pill or a shot every day for the rest of your life. You do it for 2 or 3 months, and you can switch to a different one, or you can use several in combination, and then you can move on. Sometimes you might have to revisit it in a year or in 6 months, but it's not something that you take every day ongoing. A caveat here, several weeks ago, maybe a month ago, the FDA came out with an opinion and a warning that some of these should not be used in humans, which is totally silly and absurd. They're very safe, and they work and much safer than some of the other drugs the FDA approves. And mind you, these are not drugs. These are natural agents. They are derived in the laboratory. Things like BPC 157, body protection compound 157, TB4 frag, oxytocin, LL37, Simorelin. There are some nasal ones that you can spray up your nose, like C-Max and C-Lank. So there's 100 plus peptides that we know about that are used medicinally, and it's very tricky. You have to know what you're doing and find a physician that can give you guidance. The problem is nowadays is sourcing them. Most of them are given subcutaneous, like you would give insulin. Insulin's a peptide, for example. Oxytocin, they use that in delivering babies and to let down milk in a mother. So those have not been banned, but some things like thymosin alpha-1 especially has been banned for no other reason than they work very well, and they work in post-COVID lung patients. It heals the lung tissue where other things just don't. So because of the politics and big pharma, they want to kibosh it. So we have to just be careful when recommending or when we can't prescribe many of these anymore. But anyway, there's a lot to it. That's a whole hour-and-a-half lecture by itself. But just realize healing peptides in combination or in conjunction with some of the other things I'm mentioning is a good, some novel stuff. Another one that's opened up on the scene in the last probably 5 years is rapamycin. Interesting story about this drug. It was discovered on Easter Island, was found to be helpful in treating fungal infections until they discovered that it was an immunosuppressant. So it came off the market for that condition, but resurfaced when renal transplants were a thing. So doctors were looking for anti-rejection drugs so that when they would give a donor kidney to a patient, they wouldn't reject it. And rapamycin, amongst other agents, were used as anti-rejection drugs. It happens to be the agent that helped discover mTOR. So mTOR is a targeted pathway system, the target of rapamycin. It's in the name, mTOR. If you look up mTOR, there's a lot of research on it. It's a pathway as well as AMPK pathway. So rapamycin ramps up AMPK and basically suppresses or deactivates mTOR. And as that, it has anti-cancer properties, anti-aging, anti-inflammatory properties, anti-autoimmune properties. There's even an acute COVID illness protocol using rapamycin. It has to be compounded because the full dose that's available at the pharmacy is used for patients with transplants, kidney, heart transplants, whatever. And the rapamycin that we use, instead of a daily dose, it's once a week dosing. Okay, so again, find yourself a doctor if you're interested in using rapamycin for not only FM, but other disease processes that knows how to prescribe it the proper way. Amloxanox I'll talk about. It's a kind of new on the field, although it's been FDA approved in the topical form for aphthous ulcers of the mouth. It's used in Japan for asthma, anaphylaxis, and allergy. And it's produced by a Japanese pharmaceutical company. You can't get it in this country anymore in the 25 and 50 milligram doses. You have to get this one compounded. And we typically use 40 milligrams. We can use it from once a day to sometimes 3 times a day as an alternative to H1, H2 blockers, montelukast, and high-dose steroids. So H1 blockers are things like Benadryl or Claritin or Zyrtec. H2 blockers are used usually for peptic ulcer disease or reflux, like Pepcid or famotidine. However, they do have antihistamine type 2 properties. And MLK or montelukast, also known as Singulair, is another drug that's used as a leukotriene inhibitor. All of the ones I just mentioned are good for people with MCAS, mast cell activation syndrome, issues with hives, urticaria, allergies, things like that, unstable mast cells. So we see that a lot with chronic Lyme, chronic COVID, a lot of chronic illnesses. It's probably greatly underdiagnosed, like POTS can be. But this amloxanox can take the place of all that, especially to a patient who responds very favorably to high-dose steroids like prednisone or Medrol. You don't want to keep people on that long term. So maybe after a month or two of high-dose prednisone, you taper that off nice and slow, and you can replace it with amloxanox, which is fairly well tolerated, to take the place of and use that. There's not a lot of literature. There's a paucity of evidence-based peer-reviewed literature about this agent with fibromyalgia. So I think further studies need to be developed. But its mechanisms of action correspond with and are favorable to treating a lot of the other symptoms that you see in other conditions like chronic Lyme disease, chronic mold toxicity, heavy metals, etc. So more on this in the future. Okay, memantine. That's an old AD, Alzheimer's disease drug, came out the year I practiced out of training back in the mid to late 1990s. I was a funny story. I was one of the first doctors in America to prescribe this. I had an AD patient whose wife begged me to do this new drug that's coming out of Germany. It wasn't even FDA approved, it wasn't even available. I was able to petition the FDA for compassionate use, got authorization, contacted the company in Germany, which actually they sent me a big box, cardboard box full of samples free of charge that I then passed on to the patient. I can't say that it was a great drug for Alzheimer's disease, but because of its properties, it's known as an NMDA receptor antagonist. It reduces neuroinflammation and it blocks the glutamate pathway or glutamate blocking agent. And we know that sometimes glutamate is implicated in fibromyalgia and some chronic regional pain syndromes. So a lot of people will realize this when they eat too much Chinese food, let's say that has MSG in it. So monosodium glutamate is converted to the neurotransmitter glutamate in the brain and can cause problems with pain in the gut, pain in the like headaches and things like that. And then NMDA receptors, if they get attacked, like an autoimmune disease against those, it can cause a lot of neuroinflammation. And that's probably, in all honesty, the root cause of fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, and a few others is neuroinflammation. We see that with neuro-COVID conditions. So by reducing inflammation in the brain, which memantine can do, the brand name is Namenda, that's another agent that should be considered. Now, one thing I didn't put in here on purpose was methylene blue. So methylene blue was one of the first drugs ever developed. It may have been the first drug ever developed. It started its life in the late 1800s as a dye, as an industrial dye. It's very blue. Anything it spills on will be stained blue. It was used early on after the discovery of the germ theory to stain slides containing parasites. This is right when they found out that malaria was caused by a parasite and not by melodious air, hence the name malaria, swamp gases. The British soldiers, when they were fighting the Revolutionary War, avoided swamps because they thought the gases coming off the swamp was causing illness. They did not realize that the mosquito bite carrying a microbe was causing malaria. But when the germ theory was discovered, they were starting to stain blood smears, and they needed something to stain a microbe. So they used this methylene blue from the dye factories. And lo and behold, they found out that not only did it stain these parasites, but it killed them. So then they said, maybe we can give this to people orally to kill the microbes that cause malaria. And lo and behold, it did work. So it became one of the first medical drugs to treat malaria. And it fell out of favor after a while because there's always something new to replace it. But these newer agents wound up, the bugs became resistant to it. So now methylene blue is enjoying a resurgence, and we now use it in treating Lyme patients because it kills parasites, intracellular parasites. And we also use it because it takes out viruses like the COVID virus. So we're using that in our acute and chronic COVID patients, as well as our vaccine injured patients. So methylene blue is one to consider. However, let me warn you, there are a few things. It is considered a MAOI, antidepressant. So those are, if anyone's familiar with that class of antidepressants, you have to be careful with the foods you eat and other medications. Things like foods that are aged, like aged cheese, fish that are in cans, like tuna and sardines, and other agents, other SSRIs, SNRIs can be dangerous to take with an MAOI drug. And so that's why I didn't really put it on the slides, because people have to be careful. You can get methylene blue over the counter without a prescription. But if you don't know what you're doing, you can get yourself in a world of trouble. You also should have your G6PD level checked. That's an enzyme in your blood. And if it's low, you may suffer cell lysis and anemia, even life-threatening anemia, if you take too much methylene blue and don't realize you have a deficiency in this enzyme. So because of those things, and a lot of people with fibromyalgia are on SSRIs and SNRIs and things like Ultram for pain that interact with methylene blue and can be dangerous. So that's why I sort of left it off. But there are scientists that have published work. Dr. Lee, Dr. Martins, and Dr. Gupta are three who have published on the use of methylene blue to help with the chronic pain associated with fibromyalgia. Now, there are typical drugs that mainstream medicine uses. Okay, a lot of the agents I just talked about are functional integrative approaches, but mainstream, they like to use their amitriptyline, their SNRIs like Cymbalta, which I view duloxetine as a very dangerous and harmful drug. I do not like it. Immediate withdrawal can cause seizures and putting people in the hospital. Things like Effexor and Savella. When I was in the emergency room, Savella came out as a FDA-approved drug for fibromyalgia. And I didn't even know what it was when a woman had come in. Her doctor had switched her from, I think it was from Cymbalta to Savella without a washout period, and she went into full-on serotonin syndrome. She beat up her husband, who was a deputy sheriff, was like 3 times her weight, and he came in with bruises all over him. She became extremely hypertensive, and her heart rate was elevated. She had to be put in the hospital for a few days to have it washed out and then manage her heart rate and blood pressure. She was in full-on serotonin syndrome. I was unfamiliar with the drug because it hadn't really been out but for a week. So they came in with samples. I had to take the sample, get on the computer and look it up. And lo and behold, I found it affected serotonin levels. So hence, that's why she was in serotonin syndrome. I never, ever prescribed that drug. After that episode in the ER, I would never prescribe that drug to anybody, but it's on the list. And then there's pregabalin, Lyrica, gabapentin. A lot of these doctors are experimenting with really high doses in their patients. Sedatives for sleep, things like benzodiazepines, and of course, zolpidem, which is Ambien, can be a rather dangerous and addicting drug. So I don't prescribe those very often. And if I do, for very short periods of time, because if you're on it long term, you get addicted to them. And then SSRIs like Zoloft, Prozac, Paxil. There are many, Celexa. Some of these, like Paxil, for instance, is extremely difficult to come off of. You have to taper off actually sometimes 3 to 6 months in order to get yourself off of those drugs. And there are some tricyclics, things like Flexeril, cyclobenzaprine is an example of that, that are used traditionally. So some atypical drugs, some that have had some studies early on in the 2000s, like 2008 or so, there were some publications of Mestinon, which is a drug used for myasthenia gravis. It's an acetylcholinesterase inhibitor. So it breaks down or slows down the breakdown of acetylcholine by this enzyme. And in doing so, it gives people more acetylcholine in their systems. And that's helpful with folks suffering from fatigue. So pyrostigmine, or it's called PYD, is also known to inhibit or block somatostatin. So it's a somatostatin blocking agent used with some success in certain cases of fibromyalgia. Now, there are reports that in some cases, it makes the fibromyalgia worse. So again, there's some things we don't quite understand yet about this drug, and it's been used since the early to mid 2000s. I'll just end it on that. Let's talk a bit about some herbals and natural agents that can be used. and in the treatment of fibromyalgia. This is not a complete list by any stretch, but this is the basics. So there's magnesium. Now there's different kinds of magnesiums. There's magnesium citrate and oxide that one would use for constipation, whereas magnesium malate, glyphosate, glycinate, and aspartate, and magnesium L-threonate, which crosses the blood-brain barrier nicely, are agents to use for pain control. Unless you're constipated, that's when you'd use citrate or oxide. Those are poorly absorbed, but malate's good and L-threonate's great. Malic acid, 5-HTP on the pathway to serotonin. SAMe, S-aminomethionine, is used as again, it's in that kind of pathway towards creating serotonin and eventually melatonin. You have omega-3 fatty acids, which is like fish oil or krill oil. You can get algae-based if you're a vegetarian or vegan. And then there are some plant-based omegas, but it requires the body to make a conversion, so they're not the first to go to. Melatonin I mentioned, and that's great in use in combination with other agents. High dose, we're talking 10 to 20 milligrams, sustained release even, and only take melatonin at night. There's coenzyme Q10, curcumin. The spice is called turmeric, so I don't refer to it as turmeric. I refer to it as curcumin, which is the active ingredient. And there's Boswellia serrata, which is it's usually paired up with for anti-inflammatory purposes. Ginger is used, ginseng, and other adaptogen herbs. Now, some combinations are used. You'll find a product that combines curcumin, ginger, and boswellia. And so there's options too. Remember, some of these are not very well absorbed, so always get the best pharmaceutical grade products if you can. Willow bark. Of course, we know willow bark for its salicylic acid, which is found in aspirin, again for pain and inflammation. Astragalus, gotu kola, quercetin, and Chinese skullcap, which is very good at suppressing quinolinic acid, or quin, which is on the kynurenine pathway, kind of a deviation from the pathway of tryptophan to melatonin. It kind of deviates and goes down a different metabolic pathway, halfway to NAD plus, if you will. There's something called quinolinic acid, which is a neuroirritant. So melatonin and skullcap do very well about squashing that. And I see that a lot in my Lyme patients with neurological Lyme, and in our vaccine injured people with neurological COVID. A gluten-free diet and good clean diet is always recommended. Physical therapy. You've got pulsed electromagnetic therapies, biofeedback, neuro retraining, because there's neuroplasticity, so EMDR and some others. Near infrared therapy, light therapy, you can get out in the sun, do it naturally, or if you want to get a sauna that has near infrared in it, that's the expensive way of doing it. There's also sound and music therapies. Exercise is important. There have been many studies showing exercise, if you can get a fibromyalgia patient to do it, will the return on that investment is huge. Once you get over the hump and you feel pretty good about exercise and what tolerance you have, it turns out to be very helpful, as well as cognitive behavioral therapy. And then you have essential oils that may be helpful for some, like lavender, chamomile, and peppermint. So I told you, I promised you I would mention some things. So for more information on low-dose naltrexone, you can go to the LDN Research Trust website, and there's lots of information. It's a great source of references and resources. They even have a site there where you can find a doctor close to where you live that will prescribe it. There's also 3 books that have been written through over the last 4 or 5 years entitled The LDN Book. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble online. The 3rd volume is probably the easiest to read. So I would recommend maybe starting with volume 3 first. It talks about the mechanisms of actions and how it works. And then there are different chapters on different chronic illnesses in there. I've aligned myself with 2 hemp companies that provide CBD and other cannabinoids like CBN, CBG, as well as some other products I'll get in touch with you about. They come in different forms: liquids, gummies, topicals, and the Ananda is one out of, I think, Kentucky, big company. They do a lot of heavy duty research on their cannabinoids, and they've come out with oral capsules, liquids, gummies, and also some topicals for skin conditions. Like if you have a swollen or inflamed elbow, you can rub it on the elbow to reduce that inflammation. The Cotton Patch Hemp Company is in my home state of South Carolina. They're kind of affiliated somewhat with Clemson University. They independently test every batch. I've actually been to their farm to see how they grow it and how they process it. Very clean stuff. One product they have in particular is called Trifecta. It has 3 agents: CBD, CBG, and Delta 8. And it's great for people with anxiety disorder, depression, and especially insomnia. You take 3 or 4 drops of this on your tongue at bedtime, and it will be very, very helpful with sleep. Peptides, again, resourcing and finding them is very difficult these days because of FDA overreach, in my opinion. But the BPC 157 by Integrative Peptides is in an oral form. They also have a mouth spray and some other products. They don't typically have the injectables. Peptide Sciences is a company that produces very high-end peptides, mostly injectable, some in combinations, like they'll take 2 or 3 peptides like BPC 157 and KPV and one other in an oral capsule form. They also have the majority in dry powders and vials that you reconstitute with bacteriostatic water, and then you keep it in the fridge and you inject it subcutaneously. And there are resources to know how to mix it up and how to inject, whether it's once a day, twice a day, or once or twice a week. So in closing, I just want to say that treating folks with fibromyalgia is a very personalized precision medicine way of doing things. You can't cookie cutter it because almost every single patient, like as with all my other patients with chronic illness, like Lyme disease or long COVID, everyone's individual, everyone presents a little bit different, and everyone really deserves a bit of personalized, unique interventions customized for their particular needs. So make sure you find the right doctor who's willing to spend an hour, hour and a half with you in each session and customize a plan specifically for you and your needs. You can't accomplish this with a 10-minute visit with your provider. It just doesn't happen. Very difficult to formulate a plan that's comprehensive and cohesive when you're only in there with your doctor for 10 minutes. So seek out folks that can provide a little bit more personalized attention. And I just want to thank everyone. If you have questions, I did post my professional email address, dr.saleeby@carolinaholisticmedicine.com. If you wouldn't mind, if you're from this conference or an attendee here and want to reach out to me, please reference that in the subject heading, saying, the Fibromyalgia Conference 2023 in the subject, and then you can ask me a question. I also have some of my administrative assistants and registered nurses man this web address because of the huge number of emails I get, but it will be answered. If it's something my nursing staff cannot answer directly, they will forward it on to me. You can also go to saleeby.net. That is sort of a page that explains my biography and other links and other things I'm involved with. Okay. All right. And that wraps up that presentation.
Thank you so much. It was a tremendous amount of information for us to dive into and explore. So we definitely appreciate your time. And I know, just a shout out to everybody who's streaming. We have an in-bed stream going on Discord. So we have a lot of questions that come in from there. And to let people know, we can't answer specific medical questions related to you because it's difficult. So if you can reframe the question to be more top level, based on some of the content we explored, we would definitely appreciate it. But what a trauma. I'm digesting all the information as fast as possible because I know I'm intrigued with anything that can help with sleep. And I know Danielle has her questions too. There's a two-part question just to kind of answer some of what's going on. And I know you mentioned people can email you, but one of the questions is, how can people work with you? And then how do we find a provider that understands what you just presented?
Sure. So just about our practice, we have 2 physical locations, but we take care of patients all over the country and internationally via telemedicine. About 70% of what I do is now telemedicine, telehealth. And we have a way of doing that through the First Nation Medical Board. So if it's a patient in Oklahoma or Colorado, we can certainly take care of them via telemed. I have 3 excellently trained nurse practitioners and PAs. Chris Jackman is our chief operating officer in family medicine, came from the Cleveland Clinic originally. He's very well versed in what we do. Kristen Toth, amazing. She's a physician's assistant, amazing clinician. And Catherine, we call her Cappy Gallier, she's in our Merle's Inlet office. So if it's not me, it's with one of them, and we all know what we're doing, and I touch every chart. So I'm always integrally available and consult with them on patient care. So it's carolinaholisticmedicine.com, or, that's the best way to find us. Other resources are places like the LDN Research Trust. They have Physician Finder, the FLCCC. They're very like-minded. Not as many functional folks in that realm, but we are training them to become more integrative in their approaches. And then there's the IFM, Institute for Functional Medicine. They also have a physician finder or clinician finder aspect to their website. So those are where people can reach out and try to find a provider.
Because I want to honor that it's for everybody out there who looked with referencing the knowledge that you presented. And thank you for mentioning neuroinflammation and all of these aspects of fibromyalgia to dive into something that's new, because we feel like we're stuck in a particular area with fibromyalgia. And a lot of the medications that you referenced on the other slide, the typical drugs that get prescribed, don't have as much of a success rate. So this was good to hear other things. We've heard a lot of success with people with LDN, which is something that was a top question too, because there's a lot of confusion on LDN from what we hear with low dose. Now, for fibromyalgia, it's more low dose recommendation, right? As opposed to people getting higher prescriptions, which actually happens.
Right. So LDN is quite an interesting drug. The high prescription. So if a doctor doesn't understand LDN, he's probably only going to think of naltrexone when he looks it up in his medical books, and he'll wonder why this patient wants to be on that. And maybe that's the wrong way to go, because it actually inhibits mu-opioid receptors and can suppress your own endogenous production of things like enkephalins and endorphins. And that's how it works. It blocks the mu-opioid receptor, whereas low dose, things like, from 0.25 to up to 8 milligrams, beyond 8, it's not really low dose anymore. And there's something called hormesis. Hormesis is a Latin term that describes a drug or an agent or even an herbal that does different things at different dosages. So if you give a high dose of something, it might block or suppress something. If you give a very low dose of something, it might enhance. And that's what LDN does. LDN is an immune modulator. It works on AMPK pathway. It works on the TLR4, toll-like receptor 4 pathway, OGF and OGFR receptors, and the mTOR, as I mentioned. So it has multiple mechanisms of action in the lower dosages. People used to start folks, I think, more aggressively, 1.5 milligram and titrate up. You got to start low and eventually titrate up. And if you have some chronic illnesses or multiple chronic illnesses, that might be too much. So I learned to start people at 0.5 milligrams, and in 2 to 4 weeks, titrate up a little higher to where they tolerate. Side effects, biggest one is vivid dreams. Not quite nightmares, but just very weird kind of dreams. And sleep intolerance or sleep disturbance might be one. So that's why I start people in the morning. And then if they tolerate it, I'll prescribe it later in the day where I think theoretically it should be more effective later in the day, but that's theoretical. I also split dose it. So if somebody makes it up to 3 milligrams, but they have chronic pain still, I might break it down to 1.5 milligrams and do it BID twice a day, 12 hours apart. So they're still getting 3 milligrams a day, but they're getting 1.5, 12 hours apart. That seems to work better for pain control. And then pairing it up with things like amloxanax or rapamycin, pairing it up, especially with the cannabinoids, can actually be very helpful for chronic pain states.
So with the cannabinoids, do you find that one specific type works better than the other, like delta 8 versus CBD versus CBG, or you're just kind of whatever is the specific patient's like tolerance?
Yeah, it's more the specific patient. Some do pretty well with broad spectrum, hemp oil and or CBD. It's like full spectrum CBDs are cannabinoids. Others will respond better to trifecta. Some find trifecta a little too strong, and we have to back them down to just CBD. So everyone's a little bit different. The endocrine and neurological cannabinoid system, or what they call endocannabinoid system, is very complex. It's been with us for millennia. I mean, in every sort of animal model that you look at, primates, humans, even lizards, they have these receptors for cannabinoids, which you find interesting. I mean, they've been with us. So we've been exposed to cannabinoids as we evolved through our history. And they're there for a reason, and they're very helpful for many, many people. Not everybody, but many people do respond nicely to them.
Well, thank you for answering these questions. I know we want to honor your time too, and that's a lot of information to share. Are there any upcoming conferences that would be good for us to take a look at so we can hear you speaking? And it may not just be with fibromyalgia, because I know you speak on other topics. And with fibromyalgia, as you know, we get confused or misdiagnosed. There's underlying chronic, there's all kinds of things going on. So do you have any upcoming conferences that you'll be speaking at?
Yeah, certainly. So the FLCCC has a twice-a-year medical conference that's open to the general public, not only doctors and clinicians. The next one will be in Phoenix in early February, and I will be speaking a couple of times there. So the flccc.net, if you go to that website and look at conferences, you can get all kinds of information. Again, Phoenix, Arizona, in early part of February. The MedMaps, MED-MAPS, is an organization of pediatricians mostly who take care of children with autism, usually induced by the vaccine schedule. So they're having their meeting in March of next year in Charlotte, North Carolina. The other organizations I think would be good for people to go to are things like ILADS, the International Lyme and Associated Disease Society of America, ILADS. And if you go to ilads.org, you'll find the conference schedule there. IFM, the Institute for Functional Medicine, is usually specifically for clinicians. I don't know if they still allow lay people in, but All of these conferences are recorded, and they usually have them available for purchase of the whole conference, like, in previous years. I know the FLCCC does, and they're pretty moderately priced, low priced, to gain access to all the previous lectures. I'll be lecturing on a broad spectrum. I have my own academy, the Priority Health Academy. We have an annual symposium. We had 43 lectures this year associated with that. I do offer master classes every month. Matter of fact, this month, next week, it's the second Wednesday of every month, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You have to join the Priority Health Academy to gain access. But we have a PharmD who will be speaking about repurposed drugs for all kinds of chronic conditions. And then every Thursday evening at 6 p.m., I have Q&A sessions. And we had one last night. And it's an open forum for about 30 minutes where people come in, mostly clinicians, to talk about cases. Like if they're stumped with something, there are great minds in there that can help answer questions about diagnostics and therapeutics. And to get more information, that's priority-health.us. That website, there'll be more information on that curriculum and what we offer there.
Fantastic. Is this also open, just out of curiosity, to any board certified functional medicine health coaches?
Oh, yes. We have, I'd say and we have about 10% of our attendees each year that are health coaches, not just functional medicine certified, but just health coaches in general, even in training. Residents, nurse practitioners, and PA students can all gain access to the PHA.
Wonderful. Danielle knows I just perked up quite a bit as a health coach, and we have some health coaches that we're affiliated with that are on the conference and watching. So we're building a health coaching program. So that's why I asked. Maybe we just send everybody to you for training to learn more about implementation when it comes to health coaching.
I was going to ask, because we were talking about high substance P, if you saw any correlation in fibromyalgia patients with the sensitivity to serotonin, with like serotonin syndrome and things like that.
Oh, like a higher incidence of serotonin syndrome with folks with fibromyalgia?
Yeah, or the sensitivity to.
Okay. I don't know. I would probably have to data mine my medical records for that specific question. Currently, we're data mining our EHR for methylene blue patients because we have I didn't realize how many we had, but also things like rapamycin and Loxanox. But that's one I didn't come on my radar. So I
just
can't
find that interesting because of the high substance P. Wondering. I also was going to just ask you about the different testing. I know on your website you have genomic testing and predictive testing. Could you just explain briefly the differences between those two?
Yeah, so genomic testing, like pharmacogenomics, looks at drug-herb interactions, and genomic testing like MTHFR, I mentioned, we look at ApoE for Alzheimer's and Parkinson's risk. We have biomarkers that are genetic testing for atrial fibrillation and how you would respond, or if you'd be sensitive to statin drugs, since we have so many people on statins. Not that I prescribe them, but sometimes I have to test for it. So those are genomic testing. And then the pharmacogenomics is a printout where they take the different cytochrome P450 pathways and determine how patients either metabolize it to a lesser inactive drug or metabolize it from an inactive to active drug, and how those might compete with one another in the body. So like, say, if you're on two different medications, they can compete for the metabolism, and then you can get toxic level builds up of one or both of those two agents if you're not careful. So that's what that means. And then biomarker, we're a biomarker practice. So we look at like homocysteine and vitamin D, B12, folate. We look at myeloperoxidase, galactin-3, and NT-proBNP. We use these kind of advanced biomarkers. We don't just do like a CBC and a metabolic profile on our patients. We dive into much deeper, and then do functional medicine testing as well.
That's great.
Great question. And thank you, Danielle, for asking it, because I'm trying not to dive too deep into the rabbit hole because there's a ton of questions. And I just, there's so many segments to this. So you could have your own lecture just on genomic testing itself or pharmacogenomics. All of this is there because I know we did have people mentioning they have MTHFR, and we talk about the ApoE4. With overlapping conditions and things like that, since we see a lot of family history with Alzheimer's. But I know you're a very busy individual. So thank you today so much for giving your time. I know we will have you back hopefully in 2024. At least you'll see my face in training. I know that for sure.
And Danielle, thank you very much for having me on the program this year.
Thank you. And it will be continuously watched. I know everybody says thank you from all of our communities that we've embedded this video in. We appreciate your time, and we will see you in 2024.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh my goodness, we're totally nerding out. I'm totally nerding out, and I could not even formulate my questions because there was so much good content in there.
I'm just gonna go read his studies right now. Like, I'm already ready.
I'm always worried we don't want to scare people away because of our energy. So Fibro Nerds prevail. This was fantastic to get the interview. There's a lot of content in there we're going to dive in, and I'm sure we'll have some more live streams about this content as well, because I don't hear a lot about this information regularly within the fibromyalgia communities. It has come up with LDN and cannabis, but there were some new introductions to other treatments that we have to dive into. So we're going to take a quick break, everyone. I'm going to put the 2-minute marker. We have Wendy backstage right now. So I'm going to just make sure she's all checked in. We have her slides ready to go. We'll do an audio check and we'll be right back. So take a quick bathroom break, get some water, do a little stretch. Yes, this is definitely being recorded. The live stream will stay put on any channel you're currently watching. So if you're at Facebook or YouTube or all of that, it will stay there. And then what we're going to do in post-production is we're going to break down the interview itself. So that way, if you just want to watch the interview, you can hone in on that as a separate video. So we'll always have that content available. It'll always be available for free on the internet. We want to ensure that everybody gets access to the education because this was really informative and helpful. So whether you work with Dr. Saleeby or set up a consultation or look for another provider, I will say that I have yet to come across this well in depth of neural inflammation and knowledge with different choices and medicinal purposes that you can implement. So let's go check in with Wendy. So we'll be right back.
Myself wondering what did happen to the last 10. I ran away with my life, fast forward, never turn back again. It's kind of funny that the more we pass time, the more we need to set the rewind. And 19 was the year I had to leave you, but now I'm seeing all the signs. Is this really happening? I can't believe it's true. I'm just as surprised as you. This really happening? I can't be too sure, but one day I'll be yours again. Life lessons come one in a dozen. The other 11 get something from nothing. I sit here looking for an answer. Maybe the biggest question was in the last chapter. You gave me the soul I have today. Without you, I never could have moved away. But now I see what you teach. I do believe I always should have stayed. Yeah. Is this really happening? I can't believe it's true. I'm just as surprised as you. Is this really happening? I can't be too sure. But one day I'll be yours again. One day I'll be Life lessons come one in a dozen. The other 11 give something from nothing. Life lessons come one in a dozen. The other 11 give something from nothing. Life lessons come one in a dozen. The other 11 give something from nothing. Life changes just open the door. One thing's certain, I'll always be yours.
Okay, everyone, come back in. It was a short break. Kind of got you. Hope you got dancing to the music a little bit as well. We will enter the stage. Danielle, get ready. And we'll be back with our next guest. I'm super thrilled too, and I need my brain to work. Hello, we are back. Hope you guys had a chance to get some water, do a quick stretch break to the it's always good to dance. I think that's why we introduced a little bit of music, take a little break. I am thrilled to welcome our next guest. Again, it's this octave of the voice to try to calm down the nervous system when you get excited. I'm so glad that she could join us and I can share her wisdom with all of you as well. I had a great chance to work with her for many years as a colleague in group health coaching. So we're going to introduce not to forget, we're going to celebrate her release of her book. I have it here. We are giving away copies. We're going to figure this out. People like Cassandra are going to get the copy as well since she won the full kit. So we need to figure out giveaways because every time that we post a hashtag, apparently the spammers come in and we're trying to keep them out. So we'll get everybody different copies of the book and the new cookbook out here. So let's welcome her. I'm going to put the banner on and I got the bio ready this time. I'm so thrilled to welcome Coach Wendy to the stage from Whole Living with Wendy. She has a new book out all about a paleo holiday cookbook, recipes and inspirations for a healthy festive holiday. We're going to share more links so you can find the book on Amazon, and it's just perfect timing overall. Wendy is a national board certified health coach specialized in functional medicine and whole living. She learned to take an active role in her healing journey after being diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. She has learned to balance family life and the 5 pillars of wellness to create her whole dream life. She was an incredible colleague of mine for over a couple of years. And again, as I mentioned, we've seen her health coaching in action. I'm so glad that she could join us this year. So Wendy, I'm going to bring you to the stage behind the overlay, and we'll let you get started with your presentation shortly. I'm so thrown off. Hi, Wendy.
Hello. Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Thanks so much for the beautiful introduction.
Oh, we're so lucky to have you here. And Wendy, just a shout out to everybody. Where are you streaming in from?
I'm in California. I'm on the Central Coast, where it is beautiful and sunny today. And I live at the beach in a really small little community.
Well, I am sure you get a lot of that wonderful natural light. I see your videos on social media out near the ocean and the water. It's so beautiful.
Yes, I love it. I feel really grateful just to live where we live right now.
Well, I'm excited for you to share because we didn't get a
Mm,
lot of nutritional information in this year's conference. So
mhm.
it's a perfect tie into what you're going to share and just with healthy eating and talking about eating with intent and those things that you offer. So we're going to bring your slides to the stage.
Mhm.
We're going to let you present. Danielle and myself are going to move ourselves backstage and we'll let you take the stage. We're right there in case you need us. And then when you're complete, we'll come back up and we'll do some live Q&A with you.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm excited to get started.
Okay, well, here we go. We're going to vanish to the backstage.
Well, welcome everybody. I am super excited to be here. And as Melissa mentioned, I actually found my own journey through my own autoimmune condition. So I'm super passionate about lifestyle, about chronic disease, about reversing, and how we really integrate 5 pillars, which is really the premise of how I came up with my name, Whole Living, because it really isn't just one aspect of living that really supports a healthy lifestyle or healing or reversing of chronic disease or thriving in the realm of having a chronic disease like fibromyalgia or lupus or any of the other ones. And so I really want to chat today about some things that I think are super fundamental and can make really big shifts, and they don't take a whole lot of effort. So I'm going to focus on nutrition today. And our objectives are, I'm going to share a little bit about the health of our world, what inflammation is, the relationship between food, inflammation, and the drivers that we're exposed to, anti-inflammatory foods and ways to manage and support the body, lifestyle factors to decrease inflammation and increase the quality of life, and how you can craft a life that you want and that you can thrive in. So it is estimated that 60% of the US population has at least one chronic condition. It's a pretty staggering amount, I think. And we are now at 40% have multiple chronic conditions. That's 6 in 10 adults who suffer today with a chronic condition. And I love this graph because it gives us an idea of the progression and really where we're headed. It only tells part of the story. So I want to encourage you. Yes, this does look like we are definitely on the uptick of chronic diseases, but we have so much power in our lifestyle. And my hope is that we can all really equip ourselves to really change that trajectory so that we don't fall into these statistics that they are really thinking we are going to get up to. So you can see from 1995 to 2030, the progression of a pretty big change and shift. I love this quote by Dr. Mark Hyman. The central thing you have to do if you want to stay healthy, live a long life, feel good, and avoid chronic disease is to address the phenomena of inflammation. And we're going to chat a little bit about inflammation today and how that plays a role in our life. Chronic inflammation is the mother of all disease. Another wonderful researcher has created that quote. So what is inflammation? Inflammation is really important. We really want it to happen, but we want it to not be just a chronic part of our life. We don't want it to still affect us in a major way. So inflammation is our body's natural immune response to healing, right? You hit yourself, you get a scrape, everything rushes to that injury, to that infection, and it starts to protect us, and it's essential. It increases blood flow to the area, and you might see that redness or the swelling or, a cut. But that our body is really meant to heal. And so really that redness goes away and the cut starts to heal. And that's really what we want to have happen. But what happens if inflammation goes on longer, right? It's like that little burning fire that starts really small and then continues to go. We don't want that to happen. So what causes inflammation in our body? So many factors now of possible connections, right? And all of them are going to be different for all of us. But food, stress, environment, our lifestyle, blood sugar, lack of sleep, our gut health, all create just this, storm of inflammation in our body. And that's why we really want to look to ways to support and decrease those inflammatory markers and touch points in our body. Let's talk a little bit more about that. So food, can it decrease or increase our inflammation? The simple answer is yes. Food can provide an amazing amount of protection for us. We have a lot of resources in the foods that we choose every single day based on our fork, right? I love that. Just thinking about what's on the end of your fork. I tell a lot of my clients, what's on the end of your fork has the power to either rob your body or support and nourish and fuel your body. And so there's lots of choices that we have based on that, but it can really shield us from disease if we really are intentional about what we're doing. So some foods that create inflammation are processed meats, like those deli meats, salamis and hams and turkeys, right? Those are highly processed. Processed foods, think of everything that's in a package, everything that's boxed, right? Those are all processed. Those aren't naturally occurring. Sodas, sugars, sugary drinks, Gatorades, things like that, they're loaded with a lot of extra sugar. Vegetable seed oils, trans fats, hydrogenated oils, lots of different oils are abundant now, and they're highly processed, and they are not really acceptable in our body. They create inflammation over time. Refined flour, white bread, pastas, pizzas, all of those things that we think kind of those fast foods, those create inflammation in the body. Other known inflammatory foods are dairy, corn, soy, and wheat. There's others as well. It just kind of depends. Not everybody, right? Our bodies are all uniquely created, and we all have different triggers. I showed you that graph earlier of all the potential areas that can affect our body for inflammation. So some of these might apply to you, some of them might not, but these are just known inflammatory trigger foods. Look at this. Look at all these colors. I love this because it's just loaded with color and all good, healthy foods. We're going to talk more about what that looks like on your plate daily. So this is one of the graphs I share with every single one of my clients. It's one of the first things that I share of just looking at ways to bring in more of the good. It's not always about eliminating. We live, especially those with chronic illnesses, we really focus sometimes on all the things we can't have, right? I can't have gluten, I can't have dairy, I can't have this. But really, I like to focus on all the things we can have. We have so many really good options. And this is a really wonderful way to start creating abundance in those meals that feels really satisfying and gives you all of those nutrients that are going to provide you with energy, reducing your inflammation, reducing, pain. And this is half your plate full of really colorful, non-starchy fruits and vegetables. And then you want a place for really good, healthy fats. Fats are important. We're going to chat more about that. And then you want to have another portion of those good fats, those good proteins, and then lots of just diversity and color. So some anti-inflammatory things you want to focus on are those high non-starchy vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, seeds, healthy oils, proteins, right? I just showed you that graph to kind of build those meals from. Those are snacks and all those meals. These all help your body balance and your tissue balance the pH for optimal mitochondrial function, right? That's really important for our whole body, for our energy level and how our immune system is functioning, how our body detoxifies, all really important, our mitochondria. So proteins, let's talk a little bit about proteins. Proteins are essential. A lot of us are deficient in proteins. We don't focus enough on those, and those are essential building blocks for our body. Some good choices are nuts and seeds, hemp hearts, chia seeds, raw, soaked. Those are going to give you the most benefits. Organic grass-fed protein like beef, chicken, pork, wild game. One of my favorites is bison meat. If you haven't tried it, it is absolutely delicious. And these are the foods that are going to give you the most nutrients. They themselves are eating really good nutrient foods. They're going to then provide us with those as well. Eggs, free range, organic, right? Again, they're going to eat good quality foods that are going to in turn help our body get the maximum nutrients out of them as well. Good lentils are also good proteins. We also want to have a good amount of healthy fats. Fats are essential, right? I don't know about you, but I remember low fat craze. After I was married, my father-in-law had open heart surgery, and it was all about no fat or low fat, right? Well, fat is really important. We need it, but we want to have good fats, and there is really a difference. Our brain is nearly 60% fat, and DHA is important for that development and function. Fats are needed for absorption of specific phytonutrients and vitamins. They help build hormones, building blocks for our hormones, and help regulate our immune system. So they are essential, but we want to make sure that the choices that we're making are really good, healthy choices. So some good choices for fats are going to be flax seeds, walnuts, pumpkin seeds, grass-fed butter, ghee, coconut oils, avocado oil, olive oil, almonds, avocados, right? Those are really big ones right now. Salmon, mackerel, sardines, good, healthy fats. And if you think back to that graph I showed you earlier about that balanced meal, bringing in a good fat at those meals, a small portion, is going to be really helpful in how your body processes all the foods that you're eating and good absorption. So some good choices here. And then you also want to have on that plate, remember, some good colorful carbohydrates. We think of carbohydrates as pastas and rice, and you need to have breads. Well, we can have a lot of good carbohydrates in the form of those complex carbohydrates in dark leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, carrots, beets, onions. Think of the rainbow. So if you go back to that picture that I showed you a moment ago about all those colors, that's what you really want to think about. What can you bring in? Instead of thinking about what you have to take out, think about what you can bring in that is going to be really filling, give you the most nutrients, give you the most energy. And those colors are going to help decrease your inflammation in your body as well. So think of that rainbow. It reduces inflammation, oxidative stress, and it gives us fiber. We need fiber for good elimination, good digestion. It's important. It gives us those micronutrients, those phytochemicals, and it stimulates the production of butyrate, which is really important to support the gut lining. So important. You can see how it works through all the stages in our body, right? Our digestion and our cells, our energy, and our gut lining. Really important, the choices, again, that we make on the end of our fork. Hippocrates says, illnesses do not come upon us out of the blue. They are developed from small daily sins against nature. When enough sins have accumulated, illnesses will suddenly appear. And I've seen this time and time again, right? Just all of a sudden something pops up and we think, well, where did that come from? It's been lurking there the whole time. And that's why we want to be proactive in our choices and how we support our body. So how do we do that, right? We talked about nutrition and we talked about how we can start to bring in some good foods, right? Anti-inflammatory, reducing sugars, reducing processed foods, and bringing in more color, increasing our diversity, good proteins and fats. Well, we also want to think about lifestyle support. There's other elements that play a role in inflammation in our body as well. And I call it the great balancing act. How do we keep it all in balance of the unhealthy versus the healthy, which can be tough. So some of the things that I love, in addition to the food and the nutrition that we are bringing in every day, is mindfulness, right? We want to tap into some of those other pillars, and mindfulness, stress reduction, yoga, meditation. So it lowers our inflammation. Our whole body is interconnected. And so these things really support our nervous system and driving down that calm into our body. So even light, you might feel like, one, I've never done this before, or my body's in too much pain, or I'm just not able. Even sitting there quietly for 5 minutes and stretching, or really just being mindful, can make a major shift. And then you can move towards a little bit more in-depth yoga, but really good for your nervous system. Movement, in addition, it supports your blood glucose levels, reduces inflammation, stress reduction, more mindfulness, and it decreases your risk of chronic diseases, of illnesses in general. Find a friend, get somebody to go out walking with you, even if it's down to your mailbox and back. You start really slow and you can build from there, but just get your body moving. I love how Melissa had the music going, right? I mean, you want to just get yourself up and move. We sit in a more sedentary lifestyle now, and we want to bring in a little bit of more mindfulness and movement. Oh, I'm sorry about that. I'm not sure exactly what happened with that. Some other things that help is it helps promote healthy cortisol levels, right? And can repair our body. In regards to sleep, sleep can both raise and lower our glucose levels. So lack of sleep is linked to issues like diabetes and heart disease and stroke and depression and anxiety. So sleep is one of the markers that we also want to really focus on. How can we bring in more good sleep? We live kind of in a busy life now where we are going all the time, and we stay up late or we get up really early. And that can be okay temporarily, every now and then. But the continual use, the continual time that we do that, it builds cumulatively in our body. And then what happens after that is we are left with the effects of it. We don't feel it at that moment, right? Our cortisol levels start to increase, and we start to feel maybe anxious, or, drives up hunger. So many things are connected to sleep that we want to start to create a nice rhythmic pattern. Stress. How many feel this way? I do. I mean, stress is one of those things that is my own battleground of, what's going on, how to balance it, right? And so stress impacts our body and our inflammation as well. Chronic stress is when our brain perceives that stress and it signals the adrenals to make cortisol and those neurotransmitters. So optimal cortisol levels are at the highest in the morning. They help us to wake up and start the day, and the lowest in the evening to promote sleep. We just talked about sleep a moment ago. So the long-term stress leads to chronic activation of that HPA axis, which disrupts the cortisol rhythm as well as the DHEA and the melatonin. So we really want to bring that nervous system down more into calm, good sleep, and reduce those stress points in our life. Thinking of ways to be able to do that, okay? So some things that you might think of are journaling, reading, guided visualization. There's lots of things we can do. Sometimes it's just sitting with yourself. Maybe it's drinking a cup of warm tea. It's getting wintertime and thinking about, how you can do that. It might be cooking. Maybe that's a way of stress relief for you. I love to cook, create new meals, just do something that brings joy is a way to activate that system in your body and help you to bring more calm in. So think of ways to be able to bring in self-care. Let's talk a little bit about gut health, right? We hear gut health is kind of a big buzzword right now. And I'm going to tie this all back into nutrition and our inflammation. And gut is one of those components that also plays a key role in, again, what's on the end of our fork, right? So our gut lining plays a vital role in our digestive process by absorbing water and those nutrients from the food that we're eating in our bloodstream. But what happens is that lining, we have a gut lining and it's made from that mucosa and it's semi-permeable. So it allows the water and the nutrients and the smaller molecules to pass through, but it has a more protective barrier as well. And it protects from bacteria and harmful, things that might come in, toxins. And that barrier is really essential for our immune system. It is supportive for preventing, infections, diseases, and triggering an immune response, which is really important when you're dealing with chronic conditions as well. We want to keep that immune system really nice in check, right? We want to have it really nice and calmed down. So it's important by what we're bringing in. So the integrity of the gut lining is crucial for maintaining proper nutrient absorption overall. So think again about what's on the end of your fork as part of that. So our gut lining is the gateway, right, to our immune system. And inflammation in the gut is the trigger, and that it can start to trigger other places in the body. So again, what's on the end of the fork affects our digestive system that then can break that wall down and then affect other systems in our body. So we're bombarded by lots of triggers today, right? We talked a little bit about stress, those inflammatory targets. So our gut, sugar, alcohol, pesticides, foods, chemicals, things we put on our skin, not only inside, medications, over-the-counter medications, antibiotics, those all build up in our body over time, and that long-term effects, they start to affect our gut health over time, and they can increase that gut permeability, also known as leaky gut. So these toxins from our diet, right? Maybe we have food sensitivities that we're unaware of. We're bringing foods in, sugary foods, inflammatory foods. They enter our body, and then because we have a gut lining that's not as strong as it was, it starts to create some joint pain and brain fog and fatigue, and sometimes even an autoimmune condition. So again, the end of your fork. I love this graph because it gives a really beautiful visual of a healthy gut on this side and then a leaky gut on the other. So you can see the mucosal barrier that is broken down, and then the gut lining that has now been penetrated. And so those tight junctions are no longer there. And we start to feel those effects. So again, sleep and stress and toxins and food, inflammatory foods are creating that breakdown and changing our microbiome, changing our immune system and how our body is really regulated. So some other things can also trigger this, environmental factors, right? We talked a little bit about pesticides, toxins. Some other ones that we don't really think of are trauma, things we've experienced in our life or relationships. Those can also impact our health and impact our body and our immune system. So some things to think about that can drive those triggers and the inflammation in the body. So how do we bring it all together, right? It's the great balancing act. I showed you that earlier, and how to craft that life that you really, really want. So I want to bring it together with some simple tools for you, is to think about really what's on the end of your fork. Think about ways to bring in, not decreasing or eliminating all the foods, which is a lot of times, again, what we really think of, but it's really focusing on all the good stuff that you can bring in. What can you bring in? Think of the rainbow. One of the things I like to challenge clients to do is to go to the store and bring in one new food from the vegetable department, right? One new color. What one new color can you bring in that you didn't have before? So think of adding instead of what you're taking away. So some quick principles is to think of a good protein, a good fat, and lots of color and diversity at your meals that will help to give you the maximum energy, support your mitochondrial health, right? Give your cells all that it needs, and also help your gut to stay healthy and strong at the same time. And then look for ways that you can, through the pillars of life, stress, right? Sleep, lifestyle factors, in movement. How can you bring those in to support your body overall and drive down any inflammation that you might have? The more we drive down inflammation, the less pain we'll have, the less brain fog, the less fatigue. So we can really add some simple tools in our life that can be really supportive. There's a book that I really love. It's called Atomic Habits. And James Clear really brings simple principles in when we're looking to bring in some new habits into our life. And we can add something really small that we can grow and sustain. So you might challenge yourself for a new goal that you can have. Maybe it's to bring in something new. And when you go to the store, as I mentioned, you'll pick one new thing. So thinking of new habits that you can bring in those areas that maybe will bring more of that great balance to you. I like crafting your life in a way that fits your lifestyle. We have various lifestyles and two people are going to look the same. So craft the life that you want so you can have optimal health and feel great and reduce your risk of chronic diseases. And if you have something, maybe reverse it, which is really possible through epigenetics and through the choices that we make. So to wrap up, bring in those principles and hoping that that you found some nutritional and some anti-inflammatory support today.
Wonderful, Wendy. Thank you so much for this presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
We're going to be breaking down some of the information and asking you some of the Q&As. So let's get started with that. I know I minimized my window. I've been taking notes backstage for all of it. There's a great information too, because we haven't really addressed nutrition, eating, healthy habits. And what we really want to do here with empowering our patient community is giving them this education on implementation, because many of us know the frustration. We're going to doctors. We might keep going to doctors, but there's so much that we can do at home and with our own. We can empower ourselves to do a lot of these lifestyle changes and reduce the stress, implement it for our family and health overall. So that's why it was wonderful that you gave this presentation overall. And we're talking about implementing these lifestyle changes.
Yeah, thank you. I think they're so key. Many times we don't get this simple task. So I like to break things down really simplistic, because I think that's sometimes what we miss. We get the big picture, but now how do I do that? What do I do with that? How do I make that work in my life every single day?
And that's why it was perfect to follow, because we got introduction to like some treatments by Dr. Saleeby, but then here is our taking our stuff, what we can do. And I know we have a bias here at Support Fibro on the nutrition side, which is super powerful for us to implement and figure out what it is. We do have people in the comments talking about stress, and it's stressful right now. It's the holidays, and how do we manage it? So you gave us a lot of tools for us to go through and digest.
Oh, great.
I was going to ask if you have any tips for, because, fibromyalgia is like fluctuating. So we never know if tomorrow is going to be worse than today. Do you have any tips for how to avoid, if tomorrow I know I'm going to be way too exhausted to maybe like make my food or whatever, tips to prevent not eating tomorrow because I'm going to be too exhausted to worry about making my food?
That's such a real concern, isn't it, Danielle? I understand that's a real problem. I suffer from myself many times too. I think for most of us, a few things that I think are key is I like to meal batch, but not only for the week, but to freeze things. So in those instances where you run into, I'm just too exhausted today, or my pain is too great today, I don't have the capacity, you have a few things that you already have prepared in the freezer that you can take out and have ready to go. So one of the things, if you meal plan, like I usually try to meal plan on Sundays, is whatever that meal is, I'll create a few extra and then I'll put those in the freezer. So you always have a stash of many things that you're building up. So I'm making what I'm having that week, but then I'm also creating that extra storage for the future. So that's one thing. I think it's really important to have things on hand in the freezer. The other thing is, I like to say there's a lot of resources that we have now that are even pre-cut for us, right? They can make it really simple. So having some things when you know maybe it's going to be a busy week, or you are anticipating, you're doing this big summit, this is a lot of energy, and having some of those things already chopped and prepared in the refrigerator even are really helpful to have ready to go.
Yeah, those are great ideas. I completely forgot about having things like reach out for you. So I definitely, and you did bring up pasta and pizza. I'm Italian from New York, so we're definitely gonna have a conversation about how to, on the side, about how I can figure out how to have those still in my life, because that's like in my blood, but in a healthy way. So
I'm Italian as well, and I used to make all my homemade pastas, and it was amazing, and my family loved it. And you have to, I'm a big fan of recreating your favorites. So I don't feel like, because maybe we have a restricted diet, I can't have gluten or dairy or eggs,
okay.
shellfish, right? And so how can you recreate it? I still want all those good foods, but how can you still have them all? So absolutely bring them in, but with foods that are going to support your body instead.
So how can people get connected? You do coaching and things like that. So how can we get connected, get the community connected with you?
Yeah, I do. So I do individual coaching as well as group coaching. And you can find me at wendypurviance.com. I'm also on Instagram at Whole Living with Wendy, and on Facebook at Whole Living with Wendy as well.
And we'll be sure to share all those links. And I definitely encourage people to get in touch with Wendy. I've worked with her, so I can validate her tremendous skills, and seeing her with her coaching skills. She has a lot to offer. And for those too with families, you have a lot of experience like integrating this into a family system and balancing a family life, which is important because we don't want to necessarily let the chronic condition like interfere with all of that. We still want to thrive as much as possible.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important, and we can lose sight of that, or lose sight of how to even make that happen, right? We're just doing the best we can, but it's really important to integrate our life into where we're living and to support us in all of those areas. And I feel like it fluctuates from time to time. This might be one area that is a little bit challenging, and then it shifts to another one. But how can you bring all of these elements in very simply? It doesn't have to be complicated, right? I think of even movement. I mean, just moving your body for 5 minutes is still moving your body, right? It doesn't have to be for an hour at the gym. So how can we bring those simple things in every day that make us feel good and keep us moving towards that optimal health that for our own body, and how we can do that with what we have?
It's all great information. And we cannot let you leave though without celebrating your release, your book release. Okay, so what inspired this as far as holiday recipes go? So it's your ultimate paleo holiday cookbook, gluten-free, dairy-free, and paleo recipes. Let's talk about this a little bit and share this. The timing is perfect. So we got to go pick this up.
Thank you. I have a bigger book coming, but this was an introduction into just holidays. And really the impetus for it was I love to cook. And I don't want to be deprived of the foods that I still enjoy, just like we were talking about a minute ago, Danielle. Like, I want all those good foods. So I started just recreating. How can I still have, a pie? How can I still have, but do it from a way that is going to support my body and my autoimmune condition? And I find that that is the struggle, is that if we can't stay true to the lifestyle path that is best suited for us, then we're going to fall off. And so creating recipes that are tasty and delicious and simple and supportive, I think, are important. And there's not very many resources to be able to do that. So I wanted just to encourage people in the community that do have, limitations, I guess, if you will, to lifestyle, that you can still enjoy all of your favorites and feel great. You don't have to be deprived.
I love it. We can still eat. We can still eat food. You don't have to be just eat like raw salads or the interpretation of it. And since both of you have the Italian background too, I know the sauce makes a difference. If you can integrate different ways of flavors and herbs, like have all that nutritional benefits in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you know what? I mean, it's not, again, not being deprived. Enjoy all of your favorite things. I'm a foodie. I love food. And so I think when we feel like we're stuck, we're eating the vegetables and we're eating salads and we're bored, and it's hard to stay true to that. So how can you stay true to it and still feel really, really good? Because most people that are suffering from a chronic illness, a little bit of something can really send your body off into a tailspin. And so you don't want to bring those in during a holiday time, right? We want to still enjoy the holiday, but through supportive foods.
I think also, like, a lot of people don't want to do diets and everything because you're just eliminating, and what you said is just a great way to do it, where you're just adding something to help you. So then you're like, oh, look at all this stuff I can eat. I can get rid of this other stuff. I got all this other stuff to eat. I'm fine. Rather than, oh, I got to eliminate all this stuff. I don't know what I can eat. Like, that's how I've been looking at it. I don't know what I can eat. I can't eat gluten. I can't eat dairy. What else is there? Whereas, oh, I can add all this other stuff. I'm good. I don't need gluten and dairy.
Yes, absolutely. And I have lots of wonderful little extra gluten-free muffins and things that you can add in that you still get to enjoy, right? You can still have those things as well.
I saw some recipes on your website that look so delicious. So I want everyone to go check out her book because I'm so excited for it, to read it and get those recipes.
Oh, thank you, Danielle. I hope you enjoy it.
Well, and that's what we're building here as the community. I mean, this is not just for fibromyalgia, but those of us that need to go gluten-free to test it out, because you mentioned inflammation. So trying to do whatever we can to decrease those inflammation spikes for our own body, and nutrition is a fabulous way to do it. So as a community as a whole, we need these resources and education to actually collaborate around and send. I am not a cook, so I love to hear from people who love cooking. And that's why, Wendy, it's going to be a tremendous resource. Maybe at some point too, we should do a workshop where we showcase you in the kitchen, not to put you on the spot, or you share more recipes with us.
Yeah, I'd love it. Honestly, I'm super passionate about it because I feel like we feel stuck when we can't have gluten or we can't have dairy. We're stuck, and then we don't know what to do with that. And I find that all the time with clients. They just feel stuck, and it feels overwhelming. And again, super basic. I like to keep things basic because that is doable for us, right? If I tell you have to have 25 ingredients, that's going to be way overwhelming, right? Keep it simple, tasty, and supportive, and reduce your inflammation, reduces your pain, reduces, your potential to develop another chronic illness, in general.
Absolutely. We appreciate your time here too. So we'll definitely share the links out with everyone to get in touch with you. You hinted at a bigger book, but what else is in store for you for 2024?
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of community workshops with parenting groups, hosting summits. I have an upcoming retreat that is going to be a weekend retreat that is going to happen in the middle of the year, where there'll be some yoga and mindfulness and health and wellness, and also sprinkling in some cooking. So that's all going to be included in that. And then just supporting my clients through the journey of how to balance life the best way possible that we can.
I love that. And do you work remotely through tele-coaching sessions as well?
I do. Yes, I do. I do group coaching as well as individual, and it's all through telehealth, which is wonderful because it's a time saver for all of us, right? You don't have to travel somewhere, and all the details that go into that. And so I actually see people all around the world right now. So it's really wonderful to be able to connect with everybody where they are.
Well, it's accessible for everybody, and the
Mhm.
benefits of working and gaining your knowledge and expertise as a coach to help people through it. And you do have a tremendous background to just let people know with all that you've been studying with nutritional healing. You are yoga certified as well. So you have experience with that, certifications in prenatal and restorative yoga. So there's so much to your background that we didn't even get to touch on in this round. But I know we do these interviews to introduce people to our community and let people know that they're not alone and these resources are available, and your experience and understanding, because you understand pain, you understand fatigue after going through this process and healing and reclaiming some of the health.
Absolutely. It comes from a place of, first knowing what it feels like. I do have that daily, and learning to manage it and to thrive is just part of what I get to share with clients and those that I come in contact, again, to empower and support and encourage along the way. And I do have a lot of resources for free on my website, that wonderful downloadable handouts of yoga and mindfulness and breathing techniques, and all sorts of resources that I love just to share. Again, just share so that people can feel encouraged and supported, and take some small steps.
That's a great reminder. Yes, there are some great, fantastic downloadable contents. I know it intrigued me with eating with intent. Again, taking out this stress that we were given something, so we're prescribed, you can't do this, but we actually are helping people implement. There is a ton that you can eat, and you showed those colorful images in your slides. You can eat a variety of colors and have fun with it. So there's still a lot of foods out there that maybe we haven't explored, and you do have downloadable content available for people. So that's why it's just so much to share. And you have experience in functional medicine, which we talk about a lot here with our fibromyalgia friends. So the background is similar to what we talk about. So if you're interested in that too, Wendy has immense experience. Any other final questions, Danielle?
I'm just so excited for this connection. I already have your website up for
Oh,
downloading resources and everything. So definitely looking forward to future communications and connections with you.
I do as well. Thank you. Yes, reach out anytime, and I'm here to support. That's what we're all doing, right? We're all encouraging as a community.
Well, we're all getting healthy together as a community, or reclaiming some of this health. We know that we're not alone, can be virtually in each other's kitchens. So that's what makes it tremendous. And thank you, Karen and Mo, for tuning in too. And I see Crystal is here. She gave a suggestion on substitutes. So there's so
Mhm.
many ways to integrate substitutes. And I'm happy. Wendy, have you noticed too that some of the stores are actually, I know you always have to read the ingredients, but there's more of a push for gluten-free or alternatives that are sort of, I guess, well, I want to say not prepackaged, but there's ideas out there, even like Hearts of Palm, like it's
Oh, yeah.
actually at Costco for this. So it's good. We're on the right track, and we're pushing these companies to also contribute to that.
Absolutely. So many great resources. I mean, it really is amazing. We live in a time where we have an abundance, much more so than we ever had. And so there's lots of choices that we can explore now.
Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for your
Yeah.
time. And again, to everybody out there, we will put all the links in description so you get in touch with Wendy. And I know we're going to hear more from Wendy in 2024. So stay tuned for interviews. We have a lot of conversation ahead to dive
And
in
get her
deeper.
book.
Yes. Don't forget to go. It's available on Amazon. You can purchase it. Oh my goodness, podcast. You started a podcast.
Oh, I did. Yes, I did. I did start a podcast. Yes. It's all about simple living. Honestly,
Okay.
I'm all about simple living and bringing all of the elements together. So we talk about stress reduction and lifestyle and food, and it's just a variety. And I'm going to have guests on from all those areas that are just going to support living a good, that good life that we're all trying to get to.
I love that. We're going to put the link out because I know we included that on the blog for the Fibromyalgia conference. The first episode was very inspiring. So you can listen to the first episode and learn more about Wendy's background and her health journey, and all that she's overcome with actually implementing these lifestyle changes for a whole living. And I was very inspired by it. So please take a listen to that podcast, subscribe. And again, thank you, Wendy, for your time today. And we will see you soon. Hopefully I'll get to see you in person. You're in California. There's no excuse for me.
I know. I can't wait. Make it happen.
I will. After these prereqs that everybody knows I'm studying, I'm going to take that car and drive up through California.
Yes. Yes. I will treat you to lunch, my friend.
Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
time
Thank you
today.
so much, you guys. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Okay, what a fabulous day. So starting out with Casey from the US Pain Foundation, Dr. Saleeby and Wendy. This has been great, and we're not done yet. We are going to close out this stream though, everybody, and we're going to move over to seeing more content. And Danielle, thank you for being here and all of our guests for presenting today. I'm glad we were able to share this information. So next, I got the timings wrong, everybody, yesterday. My times are so messed up with getting everything wrong. So I believe, okay, so Arushi from the Fibromyalgia India Foundation, she is going to be on, if you're watching YouTube, stay on YouTube. A lot of the things are going right with YouTube. I don't know, Facebook, you got to get it together because this worked before, and I don't know if you're doing some algorithm upgrades, but you're breaking my heart, Facebook. So those of you there, but we'll get it together when it comes to live. So Arushi is going to have a YouTube premiere with a live chat at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. And then we will be back for Crystal as she joins us live on our channels for Facebook and YouTube. And we're going to get into some more advocacy, veteran voices for fibromyalgia. So she'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern today, live. Come and join the chat. We'll have a live chat taking place. And we're going to also be able to showcase a YouTube premiere. She did a fabulous interview with Evan and Al from the Veteran Voices for Fibromyalgia team. So they're going to get into aspects of being a veteran living with fibromyalgia, men with fibromyalgia, and of course, all the tremendous advocacy work that they've been doing and working on and what's ahead for 2024. So we're going to get into that later in the day. Come on back. So there is a short break. And for those of you on YouTube, stay on YouTube because YouTube has been our friend through this whole conference.
Yeah.
So Danielle, we get a short break and we'll come back.
Sounds good. See you all soon.
Thank you, everyone. Come on back again. Get some lunch, depending on what time zone you're in. Get some relaxation. Oh, where is the? Okay, Karen. So it's all on YouTube. So you're streaming right now on YouTube, and so what we'll do is make sure everybody gets the direct link. So it'll stream.
It's on the schedule.
Yeah, well, I think the link. So if you're on YouTube, the easiest place to stay is on YouTube, and you'll see it. It'll notify you as a subscriber of the channel. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. You'll see it live next. So at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. So that'll be in about 30 minutes, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. Arushi will be live with her presentation. I do want to give her a very special shout out. I get this ambition. She's so fabulous with her poetry. I wish I could give everybody internationally a hug. It hurts so much that we can't be there in person, but she definitely shares her story. She shares poems in this video. Please don't miss it and support her. Share with everyone, because I just love what she has to offer, and her big, huge heart after being a very fantastic marketing and branding consultant. She still works in marketing and branding, but she was at the top of her game. She discusses when she was debilitated by fibromyalgia and chronic illness conditions, and being in the youth, and ambitious and wanting to do stuff. So she's empowering and inspiring people and creating purpose through her pain. So that message really comes across in her video. So we'll be back. You'll see us, and we'll be live having also a fantastic conversation with Crystal at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.